In a world full of routine, two degenerates emerge to remind us to embrace life. Krista and Jason aren't the cruisers we need or deserve, but they are here anyway. They're just soulmates with a GoPro, a moderate tolerance for alcohol, and a thirst for fun. Let's celebrate the day.
What's up, Degenerate Nation?
Hey!
So there's a story that came out earlier this week, and I wanted to discuss it because it doesn't seem to be getting much traction in the cruise community. Earlier this week, Carnival announced that they're going to can beers short of the Red Frog's Red Ale.
Yes.
Which was already in existence. And you guys, anybody that's ever been on the Horizon out of New Orleans, I believe it sails out of New Orleans.
And
or
also
Galveston.
Miami.
Galveston,
Galveston,
Galveston.
yes.
So anybody that's been on the Horizon out of Galveston knows that the Horizon has an onboard brewery. Now the guy that he's the brew master at that brewery, is named Colin Presby.
Okay.
And he used to work at multiple breweries in Pennsylvania. And if you're familiar with Pennsylvania, it is a craft beer hotspot. As a matter of fact, Yuengling is out of Pennsylvania. Although Yuengling qualifies as a craft brewery because it's privately owned.
True.
Now, if you look at all of the beer across the Carnival line right now, short of Red Frog Ale and short of being on the Horizon and having the beers that they serve on that ship, you're going to find a lot of Samuel Adams products. You don't know it because you're looking at it, but Angel City, what the hell's the other one? Mermaid Pilsner.
Yeah.
If you Google all of these beers, they keep coming back to Samuel Adams, which is craft beer. And
yes.
the big deal with craft beer people and big beer people is they have this argument about what craft beer is and what craft beer is. And just like bikers have who's a real biker and who's not a real biker.
Right.
Oh, you ride that bike and you do this thing and I do that.
It's the difference between cruisers and who's a real cruiser because they've only either
who's
never
like
happened
hardcore
or
cruise,
one cruise.
You know, we always find a way to divide ourselves.
Right.
The bottom line is that Carnival is coming out with their own brand of beer that they are brewing, and Colin Presby, this brewmaster, and he's legit. I can promise you that this guy is a legit brewer. He started there in 2016. He took over the position as head brewer on the Horizon, and since 2016, and we're sitting here in what, early 2019 at this point, and he's already growing this brand. And so they're going to start with 3 beers that are going to be brewed because obviously you can't brew all of that beer on the Horizon to serve across the 24 ships of Carnival's fleet. And if you're on a cruise this week, you can drink this stuff. It's out. It's done. It's a done deal. Okay, so the 3 beers that they're going to come out with initially in cans on Carnival's fleet are the Thirsty Frog Caribbean Wheat, the Parched Pig West Coast IPA, and Parched Pig Toasted Amber Ale.
Parched Pig, how cute is that?
So I think that to be out of the gate, short of the red, which I'm not a big red fan, it's a good red. It's just reds aren't my thing, you know.
Right.
And that's all good. I've had more than a few of the Red Frog reds.
Yes, you
have. But at any rate, starting out, we have a wheat, West Coast style IPA, and an amber ale, which are all big time crowd pleasers. So if you're even remotely into beer, and you know the beer judge certification program, there are about a little less than 40 styles of beer out there. Maybe you didn't, maybe you did know. Now you do. Less than 40 different styles of beer. So if you thought there was just Bud Light, Bud, Coors, Miller, and some other stuff that you would pick up in the store, I got news for you. There are 40 different styles of stuff out there.
Quick question. Are they brewing true to style or are they brewing...
I haven't had one yet. We got to get on the ship here in a
April
little over 30 days, and we're going to find out because I'm going to drink the ever-loving shit out of this stuff.
Okay.
So, the first one I want to talk about is going to be the wheat, which... Thirsty Frog Caribbean Wheat. And it says, an unfiltered wheat beer with flavors of orange and spices. And immediately when you say orange and spices, I'm thinking of a wit, and I'm thinking of Shock Top, or I'm thinking of Blue Moon. But if you go, there's 2 different styles. If you're into the beer judge certification program, there's 2 different styles of wheat. There's German wheat and American wheat. I'm sure this is an American wheat. I doubt they would brew a German wheat because it's a little drier. The American wheat is a hell of a lot more of a crowd pleaser.
Right.
Now, characteristics of a wheat are, it's cloudy. If you look at this beer in front of you, and I'm not going to tell you which one it is because I'm not here to name brands, but it's going to be a cloudy beer. It's going to be a pretty low ABV beer, where we're talking about like 4.2, really domestic beers. You okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Domestic beers and that, you know, that Miller Lite, Coors Light, Bud Light, you know, all of these beers, Ultra, are all about 4.2. You're going to find the style of wheats between 4.2 to I think 5 and change percent. So once again, a big time crowd pleaser there. Let me double check my math on that one. Yeah, 4.0 to 5.5. High five for the beer knowledge there.
Right?
Cloudy, bready taste, smooth. Good, think summertime beer. Think it's nothing too sharp, real smooth on the palate, nice and cloudy beer. And so here would be a classic example of a wheat. You can't see through it. It has a nice white frothy head on it right when you pour it. This one's been sitting for a couple of minutes, so it's settled. Okay, so we poured a fresh wheat, and here you would notice what the characteristics of the head on a wheat is. Very, very white, very, very frothy, very, very cloudy, very, very smooth, very low ABV. Nothing about this beer says I am only for a specific crowd of people. This is why Blue Moon and Shock Top sell the shit out of beer. So, aroma-wise, nice and bready, not too hoppy. A little pronunciation of hops, but not too much.
You can tell he's a beer guy. Sorry, rum and Coke.
Now, to taste a wheat, it's absolutely what I, as a Floridian, the beer I think of when I'm thinking of a hot summer day in Florida. A lawnmower beer.
Lawnmower
A pool beer.
A pool. I like pool.
A chillin' beer. An all-day beer. This is absolutely all-day beer.
Okay. That's
and
awesome.
so what's really cool for us as beer dorks and Floridians is obviously they're not brewing all this beer on the horizon and canning it and sending it to the other 25 ships or 23 ships or whatever the case is. What they've done is they've partnered with a place called the Brew Hub, and the Brew Hub is
that place.
Brew Hub is in Lakeland, Florida. And what the Brew Hub's idea is, it was started up by a couple smart guys in St. Louis, another absolute beer mecca.
Beer company.
Right.
Beer,
and what they did
town.
was they noticed that this up and coming craft beer thing, that all of these people that were making beer out of these very small spaces, some of our favorite breweries are in spaces under 1,500 square feet. And what they become is a victim of their own success. They can't get enough beer made in the small systems they have, in the small spaces they have, and the next thing you know, they are just mired in this, is mired the right word? They're
just overwhelmed.
They've absolutely collected themselves into this mess of their own success because they've made such great beer that they can't keep up with the demand.
And we know several breweries that have done that.
No, absolutely, absolutely. And so what the Brew Hub did was said, hey, look, we're going to get into the brewing business, but we're not going to brew our own beer. They do have some of their own stuff. If you go over and visit in Lakeland, Florida, it's a really, really cool facility. Krista and I did the tour.
Yes.
It costs like $7 to take the tour, and it comes with a free beer at the end of it.
And they had really good lunch, so we ate first.
And you could eat off the floor of this place. If there was a more immaculate brewery in the country, I would love you to show it to me, and I would be happy to visit it. But this place was immaculate. State
of the art, clean, you know, show ready at all times.
But at any rate, what they do is they'll take your recipe, and you're welcome to come into their place, and you can brew test batches. So you can refine the recipe for scale production, because your recipe for 5 gallons of beer, it changes as you scale it up. You don't just double everything, triple everything, quadruple everything, you know, and if I'm gonna make 5 gallons and I've got an ounce of this, and at 50 gallons, I'm gonna make that just 50 times that recipe. It doesn't work like that.
No, it doesn't.
So what the Brew Hub does is they help. They step in and they brew your overflow. And so you give them their recipe, and they do their thing over at the Brew Hub. They brew it for you, they can it for you, and they ship it for you. And then you can stay at your little place and be the micro craft brewery that you are, and the Brew Hub takes care of the rest for you. Good on Carnival to partner, and I don't even know of another company that's doing what Brew Hub does.
No.
And this place is fucking-normous. It is literally, it's got to be what, 50,000 square feet? I mean, it's huge. If you're driving between on I-4, if you're on I-4 between Tampa and Orlando, you'll drive past this gigantic building, and it's got a beer bottle as in a shape on the outside facade, whatever you want to call it.
And it says brew hub.
That's the brew hub. And that's what they do, is they help breweries overcome their own success to support getting bigger without actually having to buy a gigantic building and invest in all of that brewing equipment that would get them up to a 50-barrel system or whatever. They can keep on their 3-barrel or 10-barrel system at home and keep doing their thing and keep the distribution network alive and maintain the quality of the beer that they're producing.
One thing I can appreciate is they don't just brew anybody's beer. So your beer has to be vetted. It has to be tasted. It has to have testimonials. They decide which brewery they will allow to use their facility and which they won't. So you have to be of a certain standard to even be considered to be brewed at the brew hub. So I appreciate the fact that they've set a bar and everybody has to exceed that bar in order to participate in their services.
Yeah, but their success, Brew Hub's success, these are a bunch of really smart guys.
Yes.
Smart at business and a absolute love for beer and brewing. What we're talking about here is like a perfect storm. You got a guy with a good knowledge of brewing, that's skilled in brewing, gets a job. Next thing you know, we're like, hey, what else can we do with this?
Right? Okay, so you like wheats. The wheats are one of your favorites?
I fucking love wheats.
Okay, so what is the next beer?
All right, so next up, we're gonna do the next beer on Carnival's list, which they are labeling as the Parched Pig West Coast IPA, and it says, the embodiment of a traditional West Coast India Pale Ale. This hoppy, intense beer is loaded with bitterness and a bright flavor profile and distinctive aroma of citrus and pine.
Pine?
Can you guess what hops might be in citrus and pine?
Sounds like Amarillo. And maybe, what's that one you really, really like that smells?
Simcoe.
Yep, that one.
I'm thinking Citra and Simcoe hops, but if you're not a beer nerd, there's multiple kinds of hops out there that produce a beer that tastes like what it's supposed to taste like. But a West Coast style IPA is going to be super duper aroma. Here you have a West Coast style IPA, and I won't tell you whose it is, and it might be High Life by Cigar City.
That's not West Coast, that's East Coast.
It's a West Coast style IPA, but Cigar City is absolutely getting it right. Anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to give away what beer it is.
Wait, why are you talking
So
beer?
the style itself is really, really aroma-y. Really, like theirs specifically states that it's got aromas of citrus and pine, so I'm guessing that would be Simcoe hops and Citra hops for the leaders in it. There are ways you can hop an IPA, and all beers for that matter, depending on when you put a hop in the brewing process. If you put it in early while you're brewing beer, it becomes a bittering hop. Hello, we're not trying to give it away here, although Cigar City's the bomb. So if you put a hop in early in the brew, it becomes a bittering hop. This is what that bite you taste on your mouth when you put it in your mouth. A aroma hop would be put later in the brewing process, the last 15 minutes or so, and even potentially during the fermentation process. While after it's brewed, it's sitting in a fermenter and it's doing its thing, and you start throwing hops at it.
That's called dry hopping, isn't it?
It is. Man, who's my girl? That's my girl. And that all creates aroma. So when you hold a beer up and you smell it,
yeah, I still don't like beer.
Those are the late hops. The part where you taste it, and that, woo, baby, that's early hops. You could use multiple hops during a brew to create the perfect thing. And that's why you should visit your local brewery, is because they're going to be doing their thing, and then you drive 2 miles down the road, or in the case of Sanford, Florida, you walk 20 feet down the road and you're going to find another brewery that's doing another West Coast IPA that's completely different. Like I said, there are a little less than 40 styles of beer, and when you start getting into that, so section 23 may have 13 beers associated with it. With IPAs, there's 11 different IPAs. But a West Coast style IPA, you're going to find anywhere from the 5% range. Let me check that. Let me double check. 5.5 to 7.5% ABV. So this is a whole lot more potent than a wheat beer. When you start getting up into that 7.5 range, now you're basically talking double ABV of a traditional Bud Light, Miller Lite domestic beer or Mexican beer.
So
that's the style IPA, which is a fantastic call because it's a widely and wildly popular style. Everyone knows what a West Coast style IPA is that's into craft beer.
So just so you guys know, the pH level of the water that's used when you're brewing will change the way a beer tastes. So you can have two breweries next door to each other, and one is controlling the pH of the beer and the other one is not controlling it, and it's whatever. Those two beers will taste differently based on the pH level of the beer during fermentation.
This is precisely why Guinness is brewed in England and why Pilsners came from Czechoslovakia, as they just, before anybody knew dick about science.
See, I know stuff.
That's my girl. So the water in England was, or excuse me, Ireland was way different. So basically Guinness is just pumping water out of the ground. They don't, you know, they're throwing malt and hops and whatever they're doing at it. And they notice that their dark beer is off the chain, but their light beer sucks. And in Czechoslovakia, they're noticing that their Pilsner is absolutely wonderful and their dark beer tastes like ass.
Ew.
And it wasn't until later when somebody put it all together and we had the science behind it to realize that the different levels of pH in these waters created different levels of attributes that would be good for beer. And so originally it was all set up where, well, if you're going to have a Pilsner, you better get it from Czechoslovakia because otherwise it sucks. And if you want a dark beer, you better get it from Ireland or it's going to suck. And then now we correct our beers. We add different minerals and stuff like that to get the proper pH and the proper mineral profile to be able to make the beer we want.
Okay, so now on to beer number 3 that Carnival is brewing.
I'm going to drink a little of this one, so we're going to take a cut because this is wonderful.
Okay.
Not that it's Cigar City High Life or anything. All right, our third beer is by Carnival. They are calling it Parched Pig Toasted Amber Ale.
Ooh,
toasted.
Amber.
So I'm guessing when they say toasted, they throw a little bit of dark malt in there, and that for you non-beer geeks, the grains you put in it will dictate how malty or what that flavor profile tastes like. So what we have here is an amber, and this amber I might have snuck back from New Zealand in my suitcase. So what you have is a relatively tan, darkish beer, not a Guinness by any means, or a oatmeal stout, or a bourbon barrel aged stout, or any of those.
It's not as dark as some of the beers you've had.
As you notice by the head, it is tan, and the body is
head.
copper.
It was.
And by the beer judge peoples, this beer should come in at about 4.5 to 6.2. So it's a relatively drinkable beer. Definitely by most standards. You can drink this for the most part all day long if you were so inclined. It's not going to be super duper heavy like anybody that's used to Guinness or an oatmeal stout, but at any rate you're going to get a moderate amount of hops in it. It's not going to smell super duper hoppy like the West Coast style IPA is going to be all up in your face. And like I said, if you notice the color, it's copperish and the head is tannish. Bready on this one for sure.
Yeah, it's very bready and no pronounced hops.
Their description of the Parched Pig Toasted Amber Ale, it says, highlighted by its rich amber color and notes of toasted caramel and biscuit. This beer is well balanced, smooth, and highly drinkable, which would definitely be the character of an amber. Nobody really celebrates an amber the way it should be celebrated. Much like a pale ale or a pilsner, where people are like, it's just a pale, or it's just a pilsner, or it's just an amber. But you said you like
this one.
A wheat?
Yeah.
Absolutely, all day long.
But you said you like this one.
I love all beer. As far as beers you can get off of Carnival, I mean, look as you go down the line here, from the wheat to the IPA to the amber. 3 beers to lead off with out of the gate. I'm sure they'll add more styles as they go along. Like I said, there's a little less than 40 styles of beer, and each sub-style can have multiple beers in it. Development of beer has come a long way. It's a great time to be alive, and now all of a sudden here comes Carnival with 3 different beers, and I'm excited to try them, all led by a couple of people, the marketing guys and the what does John Held call them, the beards, and then this guy from Pennsylvania who's like, hey man, what are we doing serving beer that we can make? And then they partner up with a place out of Lakeland, Florida to produce these beers to where they can keep brewing and keep serving. And then I also see, I believe it or not, and I don't mean to be a complete beer dork, but I messaged the Brew Hub on Facebook, and I was like, hey, what's the chances of me getting some of that in the tap room there, fella? And somebody texted me back, says, I'll check, I'm not sure, but it's a possibility. So there may be a possibility of us going down to Lakeland, Florida, to Brew Hub, and having these 3, well, not these 3, but the 3 Carnival beers on tap.
Oh? So would we have a meetup there? Anybody that's a Carnival
well,
fan?
I mean, at least it's a opportunity to give the characteristics of the specific beers that Colin's created. As his babies, as he could do his thing with each of the wheat, the IPA, and the amber, to see what he's done with it. Carnival said this on their post, is that you could buy a 4-pack, which is traditionally what craft beer comes in, is a 4-pack. It's not a 6-pack. And a 4-pack generally in a liquor store will run you about $10. And so you could buy a 4-pack and tote it home. So after you get off your cruise, and you've seen all of our Kick the Cruise Blues, Make a Cruise Drink at Home blogs, but imagine having a 4-pack of one of the different styles of beer that they're producing in your fridge, and you could just sit there and go, yeah, I remember when I was sitting out in the Serenity looking at the trail, yeah, just chilling, and we met some people and we talked to strangers and we had a good time, and just to kind of alleviate some of that cruise blues.
There's a lot
and
of
so
cruise blues.
if that actually comes to fruition, and I'm allowed to buy some of these beers, and they're decent, which I believe they will be, because this guy absolutely knows his shit.
Yeah.
He's not just some token brewer. He's absolutely like legit brewing.
He's been doing it for 3 years.
Well, no, on Carnival. Before that, I mean, he goes all the way back to being a cellarman at Weyerbacher. And if you don't know who Weyerbacher is, that's a big time name drop.
I don't know who Weyerbacher is.
Their pumpkin ale was phenomenal. But anyway, Weyerbacher, that's where he started, and then he moved his way to brewing at like a few other breweries, and started with Carnival. But you got a fantastic, very knowledgeable gentleman on your hands that's taken the lead of brewing, and not just making it like, look at us, we're brewing beer on a boat. No, hold up, I'm gonna brew legit beer on a boat.
So stay tuned. If you have any questions about beer, I'm pretty sure he can find the answer if he doesn't already have it. If you have any questions about the Brew Hub, please send them to the Brew Hub. They're a wealth of knowledge in regards to beer, period. Or contact John Held on Facebook. He does respond to messages.
Yeah, promote this. Promote this. If you would like to drink beer on Carnival, and this is something that absolutely distinguishes them from Royal or Norwegian or MSC or anybody else doing it.
Yeah.
Is that the fact that these guys they're chasing the craft, and they're doing it right, and nobody else. Everybody else is just like, here's a can of beer.
Right. So, thank you very much for watching.
I don't know which one to pick up and say celebrate the day, so celebrate the day.
Later.
Much love to our friends. Be the good in the world. Spread the love and go out on an adventure. Please like, comment, and subscribe.